Hey everyone. Welcome to Turkish Spotlight Secrets, where the lights never dim and the whispers never sleep. Before we dive in, take a breath, lean in, and listen closely, because today the industry woke up to a chill that ran through every dressing room and makeup chair. Word rippled through the corridors at dawn. Beloved star Cemre Arda was rushed to a private hospital after feeling faint and unwell. The first murmurs sounded harmless, but the echo turned thunderous when said insiders whispered that Gökberk Yıldırım, upon hearing the news, halted filming without a second thought and headed straight for the clinic. That single decision set the entire entertainment world buzzing, not just with worry, but with a flood of emotion tied to a bond fans have watched grow for years. It began quietly, as it always does. A morning call she couldn't take, a message left unanswered, a driver arriving early because something felt off. Cemre, who has been carrying the weight of back-to-back shoots and never-ending fittings, reportedly woke with a heavy fatigue that didn't match her usual iron will. Her family persuaded her to be seen, and within minutes she was in the hush of a private hospital, guided past curious eyes and friendly faces determined to keep things calm. Doctors, cautious and composed, carried out their initial examinations and placed her under careful observation. Behind those closed doors, the routine turned into rumor, and rumor into frenzy. Was she okay? Was she awake? Was she exhausted beyond reason or facing something more complex? The uncertainty tightened hearts across the city. By mid-morning, the silence gave way to a surge of messages. The question, is Cemre all right? Rose everywhere at once, chiming in group chats, whispered across studios, and repeated on every corner of the internet. Fans shared old clips of her laughing between takes, her voice warm as she teased the camera. They posted words of love and faith, avoiding speculation but aching for clarity. And then, almost like a scene written by fate, came the detail that jolted the gossip world wide awake. On a different set across town, as lights were being adjusted and the slate was about to clap, Gökberk Yıldırım heard the news, and stopped everything. Witnesses say his face changed in an instant. He asked the production to pause and, with respectful urgency, requested permission to leave. No theatrics, no grandstanding, only a firm, steady focus. He left the soundstage with his phone in hand, avoiding every camera, slipping past the bustle as if the city itself had gone quiet for him to pass. The crew was surprised, yes, but far from disapproving. Behind the scenes, you could feel the breath of understanding. People nodded without speaking, they knew what this meant. Years of partnership and a friendship the industry has watched with fascination, woven from shared call times, intertwined schedules, and long days when a look says everything because words would take too long. Cemre and Gökberk are no strangers to whispers about their closeness. For a long time, audiences have read between the lines of their interviews, catching the warmth in the way they speak about one another. Their on-screen chemistry has made headlines, but it's the quiet gestures, the way they defend each other when no one's listening, that paint a truer picture. So when the story turned to the hospital, to lights dimmed and the beep of machines measuring hope, the thought that he went straight to her side didn't feel like gossip. It felt like the natural course of a tide that always returns to the shore. Inside the hospital, sources describe a flurry that eventually settled into calm. The first round of tests reportedly pointed toward stress and exhaustion, the kind of silent storm that creeps in when you're trying to do it all and be everything to everyone. Doctors moved carefully, not rushing, not alarming, but calling for observation, fluids, and rest. Cemre's inner circle kept their voices soft and their phones close. They would not speak out of turn, not while everything remained fluid, and yet one quiet phrase found its way into the open air: she is being checked thoroughly. Those simple words were a lifeline to fans who needed something to hold. Meanwhile, in the waiting rooms and along the corridor walls, a new picture took shape. They say Gökberk stood apart from the noise, calm yet tense, speaking with staff, respecting boundaries but pushing gently for updates. He wasn't there to make a statement, he was simply present. Production teams stayed in contact, and he answered every call, every message. He kept his schedule in view but placed it all behind the priority of knowing she was safe. You can imagine the sight. A leading man in offset clothes, the thin veneer of a role stripped away, revealing only the person beneath, quiet, steadfast, focused. Outside, cameras gathered like moths to a soft light, waiting for something definitive. And across social feeds, sympathy grew with a surprising tenderness. Fans refrained from wild guesses and, instead, sent her their calm, their patience, their memories. Clips from a recent interview resurfaced, where Cemre joked about never remembering to drink enough water, laughing off the pace of life in the spotlight. Her smile in those clips hurt a little today. People wrote that they hoped she was curled up in a warm blanket, listening to music, letting the world wait for a change. They talked about how her performances had helped them survive long nights and how today, it was their turn to hold a vigil for her. As the day wore on, a second wave of whispers began, lighter than the first. It is said that the doctors, after careful review, felt unexpectedly encouraged. Not a miracle, not a conclusion, but a steady reassurance that the path forward was clear: rest, observation, and a pause on everything that can wait. Word slipped that she was alert and responsive, that the worst fears had softened, and that she might be able to go home soon if the tests continued to bring the right kind of news. That murmur alone changed the air. Fans exhaled. Even the hallway gossip grew kinder. The story had swelled to a crescendo and now hummed toward a gentler chord. Through it all, one image persisted: Gökberk with his phone, thumbs hovering over the screen, replying to the crew in brief messages, coordinating with producers, balancing obligations without abandoning the moment. People who saw him say he carried himself without theatrics, neither hiding nor performing. He asked about visiting protocols, respected the limits, and moved when asked, returning only when he could do so without disrupting care. If there was a headline to write inside that space, it wouldn't be scandal or shock. It would be a single word written many times over: solidarity. The industry, of course, feeds on narratives with sharp edges, but today the story softened into something that felt more human. There were no accusations, no furious denials, no broken contracts in a storm of tweets. There was a woman many people adore, tired enough to need help, and a man many people admire, steady enough to show up. And there was a community of viewers, who sometimes disagree on everything, choosing today to agree on one thing: let her rest, let her heal, and let kindness be louder than hunger for drama. Still, the whispers continued, because they always do. Will Cemre postpone promo? Will Gökberk adjust his shooting schedule for the week? Will their projects, those carefully arranged dominoes, need a reshuffle that ripples across every calendar in the city? The questions are logical, and the answers will come. But if you ask around the hospital tonight, you might hear a different refrain. People will tell you that the detail you should hold on to isn't a scheduling change or a social post. It's the look in her eyes when a familiar voice shook her out of a haze, and the way a room quieted because two people who know each other well found a still point in an otherwise restless day. Some say that when the nurses stepped out and the door eased shut, the conversation between them was barely above a whisper. She asked about his day on set, and he told her the truth: it could wait. He told her that he'd spoken to the producers, that no one was angry, that everyone had nodded in that gentle way crews do when they see someone putting heart before headlines. She laughed, tired and soft, and told him not to be dramatic. He replied that he wasn't, not today, that sometimes the simplest things are the most important. If this sounds like a scene from a script, perhaps that's because life has learned to mirror their work, or perhaps it's because we've learned to watch them with the focus of an audience that has fallen a little in love with the people behind the performers. By late afternoon, a short, carefully worded message circulated among close friends. It did not shout. It did not promise more than it could deliver. It said, in essence, that Cemre was stable, that thorough checkups were ongoing, and that there was optimism in the room. No bells and whistles, no declarations. But that modest note was enough to push a wave of relief through the city that had been waiting all day to exhale. The hospital staff, committed to their quiet professionalism, kept the details sealed. The people who mattered most, family, trusted friends, a colleague who had just crossed town to be near, leaned on patience. Around the studio where Gökberk had been working, the talk took a gentler turn as well. Colleagues told stories about shoots that run late, about the way the body keeps score even when the spirit is stubborn. They swapped tips, promised to hydrate, and shared the names of good nutritionists, as if the act of caring could ripple outward from a single frightened morning and make the whole industry healthier. Some said they'd never seen him leave so fast, others said they weren't surprised at all. Both things can be true. Speed and steadfastness can live in the same heart. If you step outside with me for a moment, you can almost feel the sunset leaning over the city, casting long lines of amber and violet across rooftops and quiet streets. The hospital's windows catch the light, and for a breath, everything looks like a photograph taken to remember a day that no one wants to repeat but everyone wants to learn from. There are cameras waiting at the entrance, yes, ready to catch the first glimpse if she's discharged, ready to read expressions and draw conclusions from the crease in a brow or the angle of a wave. But there's also a respect in the air. Even the most relentless lens knows when to soften. So where does that leave us? It leaves us on the edge of an evening that will end with the same hope that began to bloom at midday. It leaves us expecting a short, official statement. Nothing flashy, just enough to confirm what we most want to hear, that Cemre is resting, that the tests support a cautious optimism, that the pressure cooker will be set to low for a while. And perhaps, if the stars align, a simple note from Gökberk as well, thanking the crew he left waiting and the fans who flooded the world with warmth. Maybe he'll say very little, because sometimes the right words are few. Maybe he'll just say that he did what anyone would do. Whether that's true or modesty, I'll let you decide. Until then, we hold this picture in our minds, a woman whose talent has carried countless stories, taking a moment to let her own story slow down, a man whose presence has steadied more than a few storms, willing to be steady again when it counted. We wait to see the glow of the automatic doors slide open, to read the relief in posture more than in press releases, to watch the city unclench. We wait because waiting, when done with love, isn't empty. It's the softest form of belief. You've been with Turkish Spotlight Secrets through a day that turned our hearts in quiet circles, and we'll be here when the next chapter arrives. If you felt the tremor of worry and the swell of relief with us, stay close. Subscribe, share, and keep your notifications on, because the moment Cemre steps into the evening air and the moment Gökberk offers his first words, we'll bring it to you with the care today has earned. For now, send a thought, send a wish, and let this be the rare story that reminds us why we watch at all, not just for the glitter, but for the grace that appears when the glitter fades for a moment and two people remember what truly matters.